Welcome, traveler, to the Quiet Historian. Tonight, we are seeking stillness, not in the rush of the present, but in the echoes of the deep past. Put aside the noise of the day. Take one slow, complete breath and feel your thoughts settle like dust in an ancient, abandoned library. We close our eyes and allow the pages of history to turn softly in the dark. Tonight, we drift into Alexander the Great journey to the Indus for sleep. The march begins. Stars over the Hellespont. The year is 334 BC. The world is resting in the profound stillness of the pre-dawn hour. The moon hangs low and heavy over the narrow strait of water known to the Greeks as the Hellespont. It is the vital seam separating the familiar European West from the immense, unknowable Asian East. In the darkness, the massive assembly of ships and barges is almost silent. This is not the sound of a hurried retreat or a sudden assault. This is the slow, deliberate movement of destiny itself. No shouted commands are permitted. The thousands of men moving across the water communicate only through the steady, predictable, physical rhythm of their action. Listen closely to the sound of the crossing. It is the repetitive, rhythmic splash of oars dipping into the calm water, pulling taut and silently returning to the surface. It is the deep, muffled thud of timber against timber as the heavy troop barges nudge the shoreline of Asia Minor. This rhythm is the core of our journey. Splash, thud, pull, wait, splash, thud. Let this deep consistency regulate your breathing, slow and steady. Imagine the sheer physical sensation of the journey. The air is cool and damp, carrying the sharp, clean scent of the salt sea mixed with the earthy smell of wet rope and heavy, worn wood. Your hands grip the cold, wet rail of the boat. You feel the deep, steady sway of the hull, a gentle, ceaseless rocking motion that lulls the mind into acceptance. Alexander himself is among the first to disembark. He does not rush. He steps onto the foreign soil of Troy, a land steeped in the poetry of his own history. He wears the dark cloak of a young king, his form blending into the shadows of the morning. Feel the cold dew of the foreign grass under your feet. This is the moment of absolute commitment. It is the precise, physical point of no return. Every particle of dust, every blade of grass, belongs to a land that lies outside the known maps of his youth. The noise of the water, the rhythmic sounds of the crossing, now begin to recede. They are replaced by a growing, expectant silence from the land. Alexander stands for a long moment, watching the wake of the boats dissipate into the quiet water, watching the gentle obliteration of the path behind him. His mind is not on the immediacy of war, but on the profound, physical act of leaving. Every step he takes inland is a choice to let the familiar coastline recede into shadow. The great barrier of the Hellespont is now behind him, an invisible line drawn in the dark. We have crossed. The noise of the water is now giving way entirely to the quiet of the land. The first night in Asia Minor has begun. We stand with Alexander now on the shore. He turns his back entirely to the water, his focus drawn inland toward the vast, dark continent of Asia. Look up with him. The stars above the Hellespont are not unfamiliar. They are the same fixed, cold lights that shone over his childhood home in Macedon. Yet, here, they feel wider, higher, and infinitely more silent. It is a silence that swallows ambition and noise. The sky is a dark, velvet canvas, dusted with millions of tiny, unchanging points of light. We track the familiar patterns. The great celestial bear, Ursa Major, slowly swinging on its axis. Cassiopeia, traveling her path with reliable, ancient certainty. They are fixed, dependable, and silent witnesses to this great human endeavor. Alexander is contemplating the distance. He is calculating the journey, not in miles, but in the slow, inevitable movement of these constellations across the meridian, the imaginary line stretching from north to south, directly overhead. Every day of marching will shift his perspective of the sky by a tiny fraction. He understands that the stars are his most faithful compass, but they are also his measure of time. They remind him that the journey ahead will not be fast. It requires the deep patience of the cosmos. Let your gaze drift, following the light that has traveled for countless years to reach this quiet, foreign shore. Allow the immense, cold indifference of the ancient constellations to settle over your thoughts, smoothing away the small worries of the day. We are traveling to the east, but first, we must rest in the moment of absolute celestial stillness. Let the feeling of being one tiny, quiet presence under a vast and silent sky pull you down into a deep sense of calm. The world is large, and your thoughts are small. That's the perfect transition. We move from the vast, cold silence of the sky back to the immediate human rhythms of the ground. Rhythms that are intentionally soothing and repetitive. The great fleet has disgorged its human cargo, and the focus shifts from the fluid chaos of the water to the structured, predictable order of the land. The first camp on Asian soil is established not with chaos, but with ritual and repetition. Every man knows his task. Every action is choreographed by years of practice. The work is slow, methodical, and profoundly grounding. Picture the men moving in the soft light provided by scattered, low campfires. Red glows against the overwhelming blackness. They are raising tents that have been folded and refolded 100 times. Each movement a rehearsal of the last. Listen closely to the rhythm of the settlement. The slow, heavy thump of a mallet driving wooden stakes into the foreign dirt. The gentle creak of a rope pulled taut across a tent pole. The dull scrape of a shovel digging a latrine trench. These are the small, essential noises of thousands of men settling in for the long night. This soundscape is built on repetition and predictability. There is the low, monotonous grumble of a mule chewing its feed, a steady, hypnotic cadence. There is the faint clang of a bronze buckle falling onto dry earth. All tension is released through routine. The atmosphere is still, but it is heavy with the scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and clean, oiled leather. The sound that holds the camp together is the guard. Listen for his distant, predictable footsteps, pacing his circuit slowly, around the perimeter. He is a metronome of security, marking the passage of time without urgency. He assures you that nothing will interrupt this deep, necessary rest. Everything in this camp is designed for the maximum possible rest. Let the safety of this predictable routine, the rhythm of the chores, the slow footsteps, the soft, repetitive sounds, guide you into stillness. There is nothing new here, only the deep comfort of the known task. Outside, the camp is settling into its collective, heavy sleep. But in Alexander's private tent, a low light still flickers. The light source is a single oil lamp, its flame small and steady. It draws long, slow shadows across the canvas walls, shadows that seem to stretch and yawn with profound tiredness. Tonight, the king is not poring over maps of strategy or decrees of conquest. He is seated quietly, perhaps with a copy of Homer's Iliad that he always carried, given to him by his teacher, Aristotle. The only sound in his immediate world is the gentle turn of a heavy papyrus scroll and the quiet, consistent hiss of the oil wick burning down slowly, slowly. It is a moment dedicated not to action, but to reflection and stillness. Just outside the circle of the king's light, a scribe is working by a smaller, dedicated lamp. This man is the official chronicler, tasked with recording the history of the journey as it unfolds. He is not recording battles. He is charting the geometry of the first night, the exact coordinates of the landing site, the geological composition of the ground, the species of the night-singing insects they heard. Listen for the subtle, sharp scratch of the reed pen on the prepared parchment. Scratch, pause, scratch, pause. Every line he draws is straight, every Greek word carefully formed and deliberately spaced. This is the slow, quiet work of making the unknown world known. It is the soothing, repetitive process of imposing clarity and order upon the vast, featureless night. This meticulous focus on detail is what allows the army to rest. The scribe is the anchor of the journey, recording facts while the men dream of home. Let the rhythmic scratching of the pen become your final lullaby. It is the sound of time being carefully and calmly recorded, assuring you that the world is ordered even in the deepest darkness. There is no need for worry, only for rest. Now, let the lamp go out. Let the last sound be the deep, collective breath of the sleeping army surrounding you, ensuring your peace. Sleep now, traveler. The first stage of the great journey is complete. Silence in the sands. Gaugamella's aftermath. The great clash at Gaugamela is long past, but we do not linger on the noise of steel or the clash of shields. Instead, we focus on the aftermath, the immense, dust-choked silence that settles over the vast plain. It is a silence so profound, it seems to absorb all light and sound, stretching unbroken to the horizon. The great Persian army, once a terrifying sight, is now only a memory carried on the whispering wind, a ghost of a force dissolved by distance. Alexander's forces are not celebrating. They are moving. The victory has only opened the door to greater distance, greater deserts. Now begins the long, grueling pursuit of Darius, a chase that takes the army deep into the historical heart of the Achaemenid Empire. Imagine yourself as one of the exhausted soldiers, marching day after day. Your boots kick up fine, flour-like dust that coats the tongue and gums, turning the world monochrome. The sun is a relentless, dull gold disk that hangs heavy in the sky. The landscape is immense and unchanging, a vast, silent testament to the scale of the world. This is the true exhaustion of empire building, not the moment of the fight, but the monotonous, endless effort of holding the road. The only sound accompanying you is the rhythm of the march, the subtle, synchronized shuffle of thousands of feet on loose gravel and dry earth, a pervasive shush, shush that becomes its own form of white noise. Hear the soft, hypnotic creak of leather armor, the gentle sway of the supply carts behind you, their wheels turning endlessly, slowly, on the same path. Let that predictable, repetitive rhythm guide your breathing. Slow and steady. Shuffle. Creak, shuffle, creak. It is the sound of inevitability, the sense that nothing can interrupt this movement, this long road into the quiet, dry heart of Asia. You are moving forward slowly, surely, under the pressure of the vast, open silence. Let the sense of movement and exhaustion settle deep into your muscles, urging you toward a profound and earned rest. The long, dusty march finally delivers the army to the spiritual center of the Persian world, Persepolis. Suddenly, the endless horizon of the desert is replaced by the sheer, overwhelming geometry of monumental stone. Here, the columns rise against the sky, perfect and silent, their monumental height dwarfing the marching men. They stand like the trunks of an immense, petrified forest. The city is a world built of impossible, pale stone, carved with figures in stately, endless procession. They are not rushing. They are eternal, slow, and still. The stone carvings depict tributes, slow lines of delegates bringing gifts, bulls and lions carved in frozen combat. Everything here is quiet and held in time. We pause inside the Apadana Palace, the massive reception hall. Close your eyes and envision the quiet grandeur. The floor is made of a smooth, cool stone, a blessed relief against the heat of the day. In the vast, high space, a single spoken word is swallowed instantly, absorbed by the silence and the sheer volume of the air. The only audible sounds are the distant, subtle echo of your own slow footsteps, and perhaps the faint, dry rustle of air moving through the broken roof. The shadows cast by the immense column shafts are long, dark, and perfectly cool. Shadows that have not moved for centuries. Alexander is here, but he is not a conqueror shouting orders. He is a young man walking slowly through the abandoned halls of a 1,000-year dream. He is contemplating the finitude of power. He sees the immense time it took to raise these walls, and the brief, blinding speed with which they were humbled. Let the coolness of the monumental stone settle over your thoughts. Feel the sense of immense, slow time that built and preserved these silent halls. Rest now in the deepest, most patient shadow of the ancient work. Deeper within the silent complex of Persepolis lies the heart of the empire's material wealth. The treasury, the immense, quiet rooms are dedicated not to display, but to storage and record keeping. In the cool, windowless darkness, the Macedonian scribes are working. They are not fighting. They are counting. It is a slow, tedious task carried out under the focused, small light of many individual oil lamps. The air is dry and smells faintly of dust and aged metal. Imagine the repetitive, hypnotic work of cataloging centuries of accumulated wealth. They are weighing bars of silver, sorting vessels of gold, and sealing them into leather sacks. The work must be done with meticulous calm to avoid error. Listen for the specific sounds of this quiet labor, the gentle, rhythmic clink of metal against metal, like an antique clock ticking softly as coins or small objects are poured into a scale pan. The soft, steady scratching of the reed pen on the clay tablets, recording the tallies of weight and volume, one patient line after another, the low, continuous whisper of Greek numerals being checked against Persian inventories. It is the soothing, predictable sound of order being imposed upon chaos. Every piece of wealth, every fragment of history is accounted for. The scribes are recording the past, line by patient line, while the soldiers rest outside in the protective shadow of the great city. This steady, numerical rhythm is a comforting contrast to the dramatic uncertainty of the journey. Let this deep focus on meticulous, quiet process anchor your mind and allow you to drift toward a sense of secure, organized calm. The world is being counted and controlled. One soft, rhythmic clink at a time. The work in the treasury is complete. The great cities of Persia, secured and silent, behind us. The long road requires a final, deep rest before the army must turn further east into the vast, unknown, high plains of Central Asia. We have moved beyond the mountains and the familiar trade routes. Tonight, the camp is set in a wide, flat expanse where the horizon seems infinite. The light of the small, carefully managed campfires cannot compete with the overwhelming density of the night sky. The only remaining sound is the dry, breathy whisper of the desert wind, a soft, continuous sigh that moves across the miles of sand and stone without obstruction. Listen to its gentle uniformity. It is the sound of absolute emptiness, a noise that suggests nothing but distance and stillness. The heat of the day has long bled away, leaving behind a cold, clean air that encourages deep, slow breathing. You are lying down now, watching the sky. The stars, which were immense over the Hellespont, seem even closer and more numerous here, hanging low and thick over the immense territory we have crossed. Let the scale of this quiet landscape come into your room. Let the sense of immense, slow time wash over your thoughts. Feel the cool, heavy blanket of the night settle over your eyes, assuring you that your body and mind are finally finding their equilibrium. There is nowhere left to rush, and no urgent sound left to hear. This stillness, this profound solitude, is your reward for the long road traveled. Rest now, traveler, in the quiet heart of the shattered empire. The path ahead is immense, but tonight the journey pauses completely. The founding of cities, Alexandria on the Oxus. The pursuit of Darius is over, ending not with a battle, but with the quiet dissolution of the Persian power structure. Now Alexander pivots from conquest to creation. We are in Bactria and Sogdiana, modern Afghanistan and Tajikistan, a world of arid mountains and broad, swift rivers. The army pauses its march to build, and the process of city building is one of slow, precise, measured steps. Imagine the scene, the wide, open plain where a new Alexandria is to be founded, perhaps on the banks of the mighty Oxus River. The first act is not chaos or digging, but measurement and design. Alexander calls for his surveyors and engineers. Their work is a dedication to geometry and order. They begin by laying out the city's perimeter, not with heavy machinery, but with simple, predictable tools. Long ropes, weighted plumb bobs, and carefully sighted stakes. Listen for the sounds of this meticulous work. The gentle, steady thwack of a wooden stake being driven into the dry earth, marking a perfect corner. The soft, rhythmic swish of a rope being stretched out over the ground, marking the perfect line of a future main avenue. The city plan is a grid, an organized, calming pattern of right angles and straight lines imposed upon the wild, uneven land. Every street must be parallel or perpendicular to the next. The repetitive labor of ensuring this perfection is a soothing assurance of human control in a vast, unpredictable world. The engineers are not rushing. They take their time sighting down the line, pulling the ropes taut, ensuring that the distance from one marked point to the next is flawless. This dedication to purity of form is a form of meditation. Let the sight of these straight, long lines and the predictable rhythm of the surveyor's work ease your own inner landscape. The foundation is being laid slowly and surely. Rest now in the comfort of perfect, organized geometry. We shift the focus from the dry geometry of the city plan to the natural, fluid power of the river, emphasizing its cooling presence and ceaseless, smooth movement as a calming element. The new settlement is anchored to a source of life and peace. The great river Oxus, known today as the Amu Darya, it is a wide, powerful body of water, but in the heat of the Central Asian plain, its presence is a profound source of tranquility. Imagine standing on the bank where the land falls away steeply to meet the water, the heat, the dust, and the incessant dry wind of the desert seem to halt right here. The river itself is a deep, muddy blue-green, moving with an unhurried, enormous force. It flows ceaselessly from the distant, unseen mountains, carrying silt and whispers from the roof of the world. It is too wide and too deep for us to worry about crossing tonight. It is simply a boundary, a constant. Listen to the sound of the Oxus. It is not the violent crash of rapids, but the deep, sustained low hum of massive volume moving over a smooth riverbed. It is a deep, resonant sound, uniform and comforting. It is the sound of time passing slowly and inevitably, without effort or noise. Feel the sensation of the cool air rising from the water. The river acts as a natural fan, drawing the heavy heat away from the new city site. The men gather here in the fading light, washing the dust from their faces, the water heavy and cool against their skin. Let your thoughts flow like the river, unhurried, wide, and without resistance. The Oxus is a steady presence in an unsteady land. It symbolizes the continuity and the deep, fluid patience required to achieve a long-term goal. Drift now with the current. Let the great, slow rhythm of the river of tranquility carry you into a deep, sustained calm. There is no urgency in the water, only the steady, rhythmic pull toward the sea. We now bring the focus to the actual construction work, concentrating on the slow, repetitive, and constructive sounds of building, which is inherently soothing and focused. With the boundaries marked and the Oxus providing water, the great, quiet work of construction begins. This is labor, performed not with speed, but with precision and stamina. The noise of building is not loud or jarring. It is comprised of steady, predictable rhythms. Imagine the work of the stonemasons. They are shaping local stone for the foundation walls and defensive towers. Hear the soft, repetitive tap, tap, tap of a hammer gently correcting the edge of a newly cut block. This sound is not violence. It is shaping and refining. The stones are being fitted, one to the next, slowly, surely, achieving a seamless union. The soldiers, now turned laborers, are working in teams, hoisting sun-dried bricks into place. Listen for the soft scrape of mortar being smoothed by a trowel, the sound of material being molded and placed. The motion is always up and down, a physical pattern that mirrors the rhythm of the breathing. Further out on the site, men are leveling the ground for the main agora and the gymnasium. The dull, heavy thump of earth being compacted repeats at regular intervals. This is the sound of making the ground flat and reliable, the sound of imposing human order on the uneven surface of the earth. This construction is the opposite of destruction. It is the deep, satisfying process of making something endure. Each sound, the gentle tap, the soft scrape, the heavy thump, is a confirmation that the world is being made better, safer, and more structured. Let the slow, constructive rhythms of the ancient builders become the anchor for your rest. Feel the deep satisfaction of creation and order washing over your mind. Sleep now in the quiet heart of the working city. The final subchapter for Chapter 3 shifts the focus from physical construction, stone and earth, to the intellectual foundation of the new city, emphasizing ideas, order, and the quiet pursuit of knowledge. A very calming, cerebral image. The physical walls rise, but the true heart of any new Greek city is not the fortress, it is the scroll. Even in this distant, temporary settlement, a space must be set aside for the quiet, vital function of the library and archive. The engineers may be working outside, but the scholars and philosophers who travel with Alexander are already planning the internal architecture of knowledge. Imagine a simple, secluded chamber designated for this purpose. It is cool, dry, and sheltered from the desert wind. Inside, the focus is entirely on the organization of ideas. The work here is silent and meticulous. Scribes are sorting papyrus rolls, not by date of conquest, but by subject matter, philosophy, geometry, history, and poetry. They are assigning them a fixed place on hypothetical wooden shelves, creating a perfect blueprint of thought. Listen for the delicate, smooth sound of a brush, applying fine charcoal ink to a small wooden tag, labeling the contents of a scroll. The touch is light, precise, and deliberate. Each label represents knowledge, secured and filed away, ready to be studied in the calm light of morning. This is the quiet hope of the new city, the belief that even in the vast wilderness, order and contemplation can be established. The library represents permanence and intellectual calm. The plans for its organization are more important than the stone of its walls. As the sun sets over the Oxus, the light in this small room fades, but the order remains. Let the profound stillness of the archive settle over you. Feel the comfort of knowing that knowledge is classified, secured, and resting peacefully, waiting for the dawn. Let your own thoughts be sorted and shelved like the scrolls in the library. Find the deep, intellectual rest that comes with perfect order. Sleep now, crossing the Hindu Kush, cold and height. Leaving the warm valley of the Oxus, the army turns south, facing the immense, towering barrier that separates Central Asia from the Indian subcontinent, the Hindu Kush. The name itself suggests difficulty, but tonight we approach it with quiet reverence. The journey changes completely. The rhythms of the flat road are abandoned, replaced by the slow, arduous, vertical climb. The air changes first, growing thin and sharp, carrying the distant scent of cold, melting snow. Imagine the long, dark file of the army winding its way up the lower slopes. The sound is muffled. The ground is no longer dry gravel, but uneven, rocky terrain. Each step requires conscious effort and placement. Listen for the sound of the ascent, the slow, heavy, muffled thud of a boot on packed earth, immediately followed by a slight skid of loose rock. This irregular, intentional placement is the new rhythm of the march. Thud, skid, pause, thud, skid. There is the sound of labored breathing. It is a universal, constant presence now, the sound of many thousands of men taking deep, slow breaths in the thin, cold air. This breath is audible, heavy, and synchronized, an involuntary sigh that accompanies every upward step. Let the sound of that heavy, slow, collective breathing calm your own respiration. The pace is intentionally slow, a creeping, inevitable advance into the immense silence of the peaks. We are too high for crickets, too far from water for many sounds. The only constant is the gravitational pull of the earth, which we must steadily overcome. Let the challenge of the climb translate into a sense of deep, physical exhaustion. Feel the heaviness in your limbs, a comfortable weight that urges you to find rest. The ascent has begun, slowly and surely. Find your peace in the rhythm of the climb. The slow, upward march continues until the landscape changes entirely. We have crossed the line where the ground gives way to the deep, eternal snows of the Hindu Kush. Here, the air is no longer merely thin, it is bitingly cold, and the soundscape changes from muffled effort to absolute crystalline silence. The snow absorbs all noise. The footsteps of the thousands of men and animals are no longer thuds or skids, but soft, muffled compressions, a sound that barely registers before it is swallowed by the vast white emptiness. The heavy cloaks and thick furs the men wear prevent the usual rustle and creak of movement. Everything is quieted. This is the oppressive quietness of high altitude. There are no birds, no insects, no wind that truly whistles, only a steady, deep pressure of airlessness. It is a silence so complete that the only sound left is your own internal rhythm, the low, persistent beat of your heart, the rush of blood in your ears, the sound of your own slow, cautious breath. Look up. Even the starlight here seems sharper, clearer, and closer, yet the stars offer no warmth. The entire world is reduced to monochrome, shades of white, gray, and deep, cold black. Feel the profound sense of isolation and scale. You are one small, warm presence moving through an immense, silent, frozen temple of stone. There is nothing to distract you, nothing to rush you. Let the deep, encompassing silence of the mountain peak settle over your mind. This is true stillness, the quiet that comes when all external noise has ceased. Allow this weight of white silence to press down gently on your eyelids, easing you into a deep and secure rest. After days of upward travel through the deafening silence of the snow line, the army finally finds a temporary pocket of shelter, a narrow, protected pass between the peaks. Here, the men huddle together for warmth and security. The vast silence of the mountain is momentarily pushed back by the small, vital sounds of human perseverance. The most important sound is the crackling of wood fire. Even at this height, the engineers have managed to construct protective rings of stone and start controlled blazes. The fire's sound is sharp, dry, and clean, a mesmerizing series of small, unpredictable pops and hisses that draw the eye and the ear. Let the unpredictable rhythm of the fire's crackle hold your attention, keeping your mind focused in this secure, small space. The men are packed closely together. In this necessary proximity, the talk is low and soft. Listen for the muffled, quiet murmur of conversation, stories of home, reassurances, or simple logistics. all delivered in voices too tired to be loud. It is the sound of shared stillness, the comfort of knowing you are not alone in the immense cold. The heavy, thick fur blankets and cloaks prevent the sound of movement. When a man shifts, the only sound is the deep, soft swoosh of heavy fabric on fabric, a sound like snow being gently brushed away. Feel the profound, physical exhaustion that comes from navigating this immense altitude. The cold ensures that the only true path to warmth is to stop moving entirely. Let your body recognize this signal for rest. The camp in the pass is a small island of heat and sound in a vast ocean of ice. Feel the heat of the fire on your face. Listen to the low, comforting murmurs, and know that you are safe from the high winds and the overwhelming silence outside. Rest now, nestled deep in the mountain's embrace. The worst of the high passes is behind us. The long, slow, vertical struggle gives way to the gentle slope downward, a controlled release of tension. With every 100 steps, the air grows warmer and heavier, and the thin, sharp silence begins to soften. The world slowly returns to color. The stark white of the snow gives way to patches of dry scrub, and the cold rock yields to the texture of loose earth and soil. Listen to the subtle change in the sound of the march. The footsteps are no longer muffled compressions in the snow. They become lighter, quicker, and more rhythmic. A steady, downward clack of boots on stone and gravel. The heavy, exhausted breathing is gradually replaced by the easier, calmer inhalations of lower altitude. This is the sound of recovery. The psychological burden lifts, too. The heavy isolation of the peaks is exchanged for the promise of the plains. As the line of march descends, the distant view opens up, showing the flat, fertile expanse of Bactria stretching ahead. The sight is a balm to the exhausted mind. This descent is a final, calming ritual of the mountain crossing. We are not rushing down. We are easing into the valley. The path is not chaotic, but gradually softening, inviting the body to shed the tension accumulated in the climb. Feel the profound sense of physical relief, the warmth slowly returning to your hands, the pressure easing from your lungs, the long, slow muscle fatigue settling into a deep, heavy state of restfulness. The mountain has been conquered, and now it quietly releases its travelers. Let the slow, inevitable downward movement and the sense of release pull you into a deep, restorative sleep. The great journey continues tomorrow, but tonight, all tension is dissolving. Rest now. The end of the known world. The Hyphasis River, the long road east, has led us through the deserts of Persia, over the silent peaks of the Hindu Kush, and across the fertile plains of the Punjab. But now, we encounter the true, final barrier, the Hyphasis River, known today as the Bay. This is not a small tributary or a seasonal stream. This is a river of immense scale. It is wide and deep, its waters moving with a speed and volume that defies easy passage. Look out over the water now. It stretches from one far horizon to the other, a relentless, churning, brown-gray mass. The sight of it inspires not fear, but a deep, profound sense of finality. The men stand on the bank, silent, watching the endless flow. They are at the edge of their known world, and the river is the boundary that nature itself has drawn. Listen for the sound of the Hyphasis. It is a powerful, continuous, low roar, not a sharp, violent sound, but a vast, all-encompassing acoustic presence. It is the sound of millions of tons of water rushing past, a uniform, hypnotic sound that swallows the smaller noises of the camp. Let this deep, continuous roar become your focus. It is the sound of a world that stops here, the natural equivalent of a final, irreversible decree. Every particle of water in the river is moving, but the river itself stays fixed in its channel, representing both constant motion and absolute stasis. Alexander walks the bank alone, gazing at the immense distance beyond. He understands that this river represents not just a physical obstacle, but the completion of a cycle. The great journey has reached its end. Feel the cool, heavy mist rising from the fast-moving water, a final cleansing sensation. The end of the world is here, and it is vast, beautiful, and utterly still. Rest now in the presence of this great natural final frontier. At the edge of the Hyphasis, the army stops. This cessation of movement is not a temporary halt. It is the inevitable conclusion of 5 long years of relentless marching. The exhaustion here is not sudden, but deep, bone-aching, and cumulative. It is a physical weight that has been carried across the Hellespont, through the sands and over the high mountains. Now, standing beside the wide, rushing water, the men simply cannot take another step. Imagine the camp on the riverbank. It is quieter than any camp before it. There is no frantic digging or building of defenses. The only necessary task is deep, immediate rest. Observe the soldiers as they settle. They do not talk or complain. Their movements are slow, heavy, and deliberate, dedicated only to the simple task of lying down. Feel the physical reality of their surrender to fatigue, the weight of the heavy pack finally being lifted, the slow, grateful lengthening of the spine, the settling of the hip and shoulder into the cool earth. The entire camp is overwhelmed by a profound sense of reluctance. It is the collective refusal of thousands of bodies to move further away from home. This reluctance is a calming force, as it represents the complete acceptance of the body's limits. Listen to the only sounds that matter, the deep, slow sighs of release from the men as they settle into their bedrolls, and the long, rhythmic exhalations of the animals, finally unburdened of their loads. This deep physical stillness is the ultimate sleep trigger. Let the immense, accumulated exhaustion of the Macedonian army settle over your own limbs. Feel the satisfying, inevitable pull of deep rest, knowing that the mind and body have earned this moment of complete, unmoving tranquility. The pursuit is over. The soldiers, having refused to advance further, engage in one final act of constructive, quiet ritual, the building of monuments, to mark the end of their unparalleled journey. This scene emphasizes peaceful, symbolic closure. The journey ends here, but it must be formally acknowledged. Alexander, accepting the will of his exhausted army, orders a final, symbolic act of construction, the building of 12-stepped altars along the riverbank. This is a beautiful, peaceful contrast to the chaos of war. The monuments are not fortresses or tombs. They are simple, massive platforms, stone pedestals, marking the limit of the campaign and serving as altars to the Olympian gods. Imagine the quiet, cooperative effort required for this monumental labor. The work is slow and careful. There is no urgency, only the profound desire to leave a lasting, quiet marker of the accomplishment. Listen to the sounds of the final building project the heavy, steady grind of large stones being dragged into place across the dry earth, the soft, careful scrape of mortar being smoothed meticulously between the stone layers, and the quiet, collective grunt of exertion as the last, heaviest blocks are finally lifted and settled. Each altar is built with perfect geometry and symmetry, representing the absolute order achieved at the farthest edge of the known world. They rise against the sky, unadorned and powerful, silent witnesses to the moment of decision. The construction is a ritual of closure. It is the soothing, repetitive work of placing things in their final, permanent position. The 12 altars symbolize the end of one phase of life and the secure beginning of another. Let the final, settling thud of the last stone find its rest in your mind. The work is done. All that remains is the profound stillness of completion. The altars stand complete, silent and firm on the riverbank. They represent not the ambition to conquer the world, but the wisdom to define its limit. The great eastward journey is over. Now, Alexander gives the order that brings the entire 5-year campaign to a quiet, psychological close. The slow turn west. This movement is the opposite of the aggressive pursuit that characterized the march until now. This is the quiet satisfaction of starting the long, inevitable journey toward the rising sun, toward home. It will take years, but the direction is known and the purpose is clear. Return. Imagine the atmosphere of the army as they finally turn their backs on the Hyphasis. There are no cheers, only a deep, collective sigh of relief that settles over the entire body of men. The psychological weight of the unknown future has been lifted. The first days of the march west are slow, deliberate, and entirely free of urgency. The army is no longer driven by the chase, but drawn by the memory of the familiar. The soldiers move with a new, relaxed rhythm, a gentle shuffle that is vastly different from the tense, driving thud of the advance. Listen to the sounds of this final, peaceful movement. The carts creak with a calm, familiar sound. The voices are low, filled with quiet plans for the future, rather than worries about the next mountain. The soundscape is one of resolution and peace. Let this profound sense of turning and returning settle over your mind. The longest journey must eventually curve back toward its origin. You have reached the limit of the historical world, and now you are safe, enclosed in the knowledge of the way home. Drift now into the slow, restorative rhythm of the return journey. Feel the deep, quiet satisfaction of an immense task completed. Rest in the knowledge that your path is set and it leads only to peace.